Right now, every single month you are spending money on your aquarium that you do not need to spend. Not on the fish, not on the tank, on 5 specific things that the aquarium industry has trained an entire generation of hobbyists to buy on repeat, none of which your tank actually requires, and several of which are quietly making your water worse while you pay for the privilege. I have been keeping fish for a long time, and I can tell you that the difference between a hobbyist who spends $40 a month and one who spends $4 is not the size of their tank or the quality of their fish. It is knowing these 5 mistakes. So let me walk you through every one of them, exactly what it is costing you, exactly what is happening inside your tank while it costs you, and exactly what to do instead. By the end of this video, you will walk into your pet store and look at that wall of products completely differently, because you will understand which of them are keeping your fish alive and which of them are just keeping the store in business. And I promise you, most of that wall is the second one. The first mistake is buying replacement filter cartridges. Walk into any pet store and look at the filter aisle. Next to every hang-on back filter is a shelf of replacement cartridges, sold in 3 packs, priced between $7 and $14 depending on the brand. The box on the filter tells you to replace the cartridge every 2 to 4 weeks. The cartridges are conveniently sold right there next to the filter that requires them, and they are almost always a proprietary shape, designed to fit that one manufacturer's filter and nothing else. So you are locked into buying their brand for the life of the tank. Follow that instruction for one tank across a full year, and you spend somewhere between $80 and $150 on cartridges alone. Run 2 or 3 tanks, like most hobbyists eventually do, and that becomes $200 to $400 a year, every year, on a product the manufacturer knows perfectly well you do not need to replace anywhere near that often. Here is what those instructions never explain, and it is the single most important thing to understand about your entire aquarium. The most important job your filter performs is not mechanical filtration, meaning trapping visible debris. Mechanical filtration is actually the least important function a filter performs. The job that genuinely keeps your fish alive is biological filtration. Colonies of beneficial bacteria, primarily Nitrosomonas and Nitrospira species, live on every porous surface inside your filter, and they convert the toxic ammonia from your fish waste into nitrite and then into far less harmful nitrate. These bacteria do not live floating in the water. They live on surfaces, on the sponge, on the ceramic rings, and yes, on the cartridge itself. They are the living biological engine of your entire tank. Without them, your water is toxic, and your fish suffocate slowly in their own waste products, while the water still looks perfectly clear to your eye. Now watch exactly what happens when you follow the box and replace that cartridge every month. You pull out the old cartridge, which is brown and gunky, and absolutely full of the bacteria keeping your fish alive, and you throw it straight in the bin. Then you drop in a brand new sterile white cartridge with 0 biological activity whatsoever. Your tank immediately begins a partial cycling event. Ammonia starts to rise. If you happen to be testing your water, you might catch it. If you are not, and most beginners are not, your fish sit in chronic low-level ammonia that damages their gills over time, suppresses their immune system, and makes them vulnerable to every disease organism floating in the water. The fish gets sick and dies, the hobbyist assumes it was bad luck, or a weak specimen, or a sensitive species, and goes back to the store to buy another fish and another 3-pack of cartridges. The cycle continues indefinitely, and the store profits from both ends of it at once. The fix costs you nothing on repeat. Open the filter, take out the cartridge, and instead of replacing it, rinse it gently in a bucket of the old tank water you have already removed during your regular water change. Never rinse it under the tap. Tap water contains chlorine or chloramine, and both of those are toxic to the exact bacterial colony you have spent weeks building. The brown color on the cartridge is not dirt that needs removing. It is a biofilm of beneficial bacteria doing their job. The gunk is the point. A clean white cartridge is a cartridge with no biological value at all. Squeeze it out 2 or 3 times, put it straight back, and use it until it physically falls apart. If you want to upgrade the whole system, remove the disposable cartridge entirely and replace that slot with a piece of cut-to-fit aquarium foam or a bag of ceramic rings, both of which cost only a few dollars and last for years. Your filter becomes a permanent biological system. The manufacturer loses the recurring revenue they were counting on, and your fish get more stable water. You never buy a single cartridge again. And there is a hidden bonus to keeping that permanent media in place instead of swapping it out. A mature, established colony is far more resilient when something goes wrong. During a power outage when the filter stops moving water for hours, A thin, freshly replaced cartridge has almost no bacterial reserve to fall back on, and what little colony it had can crash quickly. A well-established block of permanent media holds a deep, stable population that rides out that kind of disruption far better and reestablishes normal flow the moment the power returns. The hobbyist who replaces the cartridge every month is essentially keeping their tank permanently fragile, running on a thin new colony that never gets the chance to fully mature. The second mistake is buying activated carbon every single month. Almost every cartridge and filter kit includes carbon baked right into it, and the industry sells it as a permanent, ongoing requirement, something you top up constantly to keep your water crystal clear. Here's the reality that should change how you think about it entirely. Carbon has one genuine job. It removes dissolved organic compounds, medications, and the tannins that turn water a tea color. It does this through adsorption, meaning molecules stick to its enormous internal surface area, rather than being trapped like debris. But here's the part nobody puts on the box. That surface area fills up completely within about 4 to 6 weeks. And once every site is full, the carbon is doing absolutely nothing. It is not harming your tank at that point, but you are paying to run what is effectively an inert rock, and then paying again to replace that rock on a schedule. In a normal, established, well-maintained aquarium, you do not need carbon running continuously at all. Your regular water changes, and your biological filter handle. Organic waste perfectly well on their own. Carbon is a tool, not a permanent resident of your filter. Keep a small amount on hand and use it only when you actually need it, after a medication course to strip the leftover chemicals out of the water, or when you want to pull the tannins out of a new piece of driftwood. The rest of the time, that space in your filter is far better used for more biological media, more sponge, more ceramic rings, more surface area for the bacteria that are genuinely keeping your fish alive. So you stop buying carbon every month, and here's the twist that surprises people. Your filtration actually gets better, not worse, because you have swapped a spent consumable for permanent biological capacity that grows stronger over time instead of running out. There is even a case where running carbon constantly works against you. If your fish ever get sick and you need to medicate the tank, carbon will strip that medication straight out of the water before it can do its job, which means the treatment you paid for does nothing and you go back to buy more. The hobbyists who understand carbon pull it out before they medicate and drop it back in afterward to clean up. Treating it as a permanent fixture does not just waste money, it can quietly sabotage the one time you actually needed the water to hold on to something. The third mistake quietly drains more money than most people ever realize, and it is buying bottled beneficial bacteria over and over again. These are the little bottles sold right next to the water conditioner, promising to instantly cycle your tank, or telling you to add a capful with every water change to keep your bacteria healthy and your tank balanced. A bottle runs anywhere from $10 to $20, and if you are dosing it every week or every single time you add a new fish, that quietly stacks up into a serious number across a year. The marketing frames it as routine maintenance, something a responsible hobbyist simply does without thinking. Here is what the bottle never tells you. In an established tank, your beneficial bacteria are completely self-sustaining. They live on your filter media and your surfaces, they reproduce entirely on their own, and they automatically scale their population up or down to precisely match the amount of waste your fish are producing. You do not need to keep pouring more in because you are not running out of them. They are alive, they are actively reproducing, and they are already there in exactly the right quantity. The bottle has one legitimate use, and that is helping to seed a colony faster in a brand new tank that has no bacteria yet. But even for that one job, the single most effective method costs you nothing at all. You take a piece of filter media, a squeeze from an old sponge, or a handful of substrate from an already established tank, whether it is yours or a friend's, and you put it directly into the new one. You are physically transferring a live, mature bacterial colony across. That seeded media outperforms almost every bottle on the shelf, because it is not a suspension of bacteria that may or may not have survived months sitting in a warm warehouse. It is the real living working colony, already active and already producing the enzymes that process ammonia, and it is completely free. There is a reason experienced hobbyists offer used filter sponges to beginners setting up their first tank, and it is the same reason they never reach for the bottle themselves. The living media works, and it works immediately. The fourth mistake is buying test strips, those little plastic strips you dip into the water and then hold up against a color chart printed on the side of the tub. a tub runs $10 to $15. And because you burn through one entire strip every single time you test anything, you are constantly rebuying them. A hobbyist who tests properly and regularly goes through tub after tub after tub, month after month, and almost never stops to actually do the math on what those strips are costing across a full year in the hobby. And here's the part that makes the recurring costs even harder to justify. Test strips are widely regarded as inaccurate and inconsistent. They degrade with exposure to air and humidity, so the tub you opened 3 months ago is already giving you noticeably worse readings than it did the day you first opened it. They are genuinely difficult to read against the printed chart, especially under anything other than perfect lighting, and they frequently give false readings in both directions. Sometimes that false reading scares you into a large emergency water change, or a treatment you never actually needed. Far more dangerously, sometimes it tells you your water is perfectly fine when your ammonia is actually climbing and your fish are already in trouble. So you are paying a recurring monthly cost for information you fundamentally cannot trust, which is the single worst kind of money to spend in this hobby. The fix is one liquid test kit. It costs more upfront, usually somewhere around $25 to $35, but a single kit contains hundreds of individual tests. It lasts most hobbyists a couple of years, and it is dramatically more accurate and more consistent than any strip. The cost per test drops to just a few cents, and for the first time, the numbers you are reading off your water are numbers you can actually rely on to make real decisions about your tank. Before I get to the fifth mistake, which is the one that quietly wastes the most money of all, I want to pause and say something, because everything I have covered so far comes from a single hard rule that I follow. If a product is sold to you as a monthly repeat purchase, you should assume it is a business model before you assume it is a necessity. That one rule and the actual biology behind why it holds true for cartridges, carbon, bottled bacteria, test strips, and everything else the hobby quietly puts on a subscription is exactly what I have written out, in full, in a collection of 4 ebooks I have self-published. They are written in the same plain language as these videos, no fluff, every word earns its place. And they are the complete version of what I teach here, including a full breakdown of every consumable, the industry wants you buying on repeat, and what actually replaces each one of them permanently. The link is in the description and in the top pinned comment, and there is a launch discount applied automatically right now. If this video is saving you money, the books are the entire system in one place. And if you have not already, subscribe, because there is a lot more of this coming. Now the fifth mistake, and this is the one that costs the most, because it is not a product sitting on a shelf at all, it is a habit. The fifth mistake is overfeeding your fish. It sounds far too simple to be the most expensive thing on this entire list, but overfeeding is genuinely the single most costly mistake most hobbyists make, and the reason is that it drains your money in 3 completely separate directions at the exact same time. The first way is the obvious one. You burn through fish food far faster than you actually need to, rebuying containers of flake and pellet constantly. But the food itself is by far the cheapest part of the whole problem. And if that were the only cost involved, it would barely be worth putting on this list at all. Here's the real chain of damage, and this is exactly why it belongs at the very top of the list, rather than the bottom. Your fish only need a small amount of food, an amount they can completely finish within 2 to 3 minutes, once a day. When you feed more than that, the excess food sinks straight to the bottom, rots, and decomposes into ammonia, the exact same toxic ammonia your biological filter is already working hard just to keep under control. So overfeeding directly spikes your ammonia and drives your nitrates up along with it. And that polluted water then becomes the hidden source of almost every other problem you will end up spending money trying to fix. It fuels algae blooms across your glass and plants, which sends you back to the store for algae treatments, scrapers, and various chemicals. It chronically stresses your fish and steadily weakens their immune systems, which leads directly to outbreaks of disease, which sends you back again for medications, and eventually it kills fish outright, which sends you back once more to buy replacements, and you quietly assume it was bad luck or a delicate species, when the real cause was dissolved in the water the entire time. So the hobbyist who overfeeds is not simply wasting a little bit of food. They are buying more algae control, more medication, more replacement fish, and doing far more frequent water changes just to compensate for the pollution. And every single piece of that spending is downstream of one habit. Fix the feeding, and that whole chain of spending collapses at once. with all 5 or 6 purchases at the end of it disappearing together. Feed once a day, only what your fish can completely clear in 2 to 3 minutes, and give them 1 full fasting day each week, which is entirely healthy for them, and something they experience constantly in the wild anyway. Your water stays cleaner, your algae drops off, your fish visibly get healthier, and you stop feeding the single most expensive cycle in the entire hobby. Now step back and look at what all 5 of these mistakes actually have in common, because it is the exact same thing every single time. Cartridges, carbon, bottled bacteria, test strips, and the pollution that flows straight out of overfeeding are all sold to you, whether directly or indirectly, as ongoing monthly costs. Not a single one of them has to be. The aquarium industry is not unusual in building repeat purchase revenue into its products. Almost every consumer goods category on Earth does exactly the same thing. What makes these 5 particularly worth fixing is that they do not just quietly cost you money on repeat. Several of them actively destabilize the biological system that is keeping your fish alive, and that instability then generates even more spending, as you buy product after product trying to fix damage that the first product actually caused in the first place. The hobbyists, who have been doing this for 10 or 20 years, do not buy most of what a beginner is told is absolutely essential. They run permanent filter media and simply rinse it in old tank water. They keep a little carbon on hand only for the rare times it is genuinely needed. They seed their new tanks from established ones instead of pouring in bottles. They own one good liquid test kit that lasts them for years at a time, and they feed their fish with real discipline. Their tanks are more stable, their fish live longer, and they spend a small fraction of what a first-year hobbyist spends every month without ever once feeling like they are missing out on anything. That knowledge has always existed. It has just never appeared on the shelf at the pet store, right next to the 3-pack of cartridges and the bottle of bacteria, because putting it there would eliminate the entire reason to sell you the products stacked all around it. Now you have it. If this video saved you money, give it a like and subscribe so you never miss another one.